Coming up on Market to Market, Native Americans join the fracas over a proposal to build the Keystone XL pipeline. A pair of private reports praise and pan the outlook for the next generation of ethanol. And savvy entrepreneurs discover a lucrative market for greens and gills in the Windy City. Those stories and market analysis with Tomm Pfitzenmaier next.
Funding for Market to Market is provided by Grinnell Mutual. You think differently about a customer when you stand in the middle of his dreams. We work to make sure you get covered right. Grinnell Mutual, a policy of working together. Information on finding an agent near you is available at grinnellmutual.com. This is the Friday, April 25 edition of Market to Market, the weekly journal of rural America.
Hello, I'm Mike Pearson. Demand for manufactured goods increased significantly last month. According to the Commerce Department, orders for long-lasting durable goods increased 2.6% in March, following a similar move in February. The gain was driven by a 4% increase in demand for transportation goods. Orders for commercial aircraft soared 8.6%, while demand for motor vehicles and parts rose a more modest 0.4%. Excluding the volatile transportation sector, orders still rose a solid 2% in their best performance in more than a year. Virtually all the demand for transportation is predicated on reliable supplies of fuel. Most of America's imported crude these days comes from Canada. While doing business with our neighbors to the north may seem preferable to trading with countries in the Middle East, the transactions aren't exactly worry-free. And this week, Native Americans weighed in on a proposal to build a transcontinental pipeline. The Keystone XL project may appear stalled after a decision by the Obama administration late last week to allow more time for review. But those with strong views aren't taking their foot off the gas pedal, and the anti-pipeline movement is accelerating its protests. Demonstrators set up camp this week for a 6-day protest in Washington, D.C.
We are here for one simple reason, and it is to tell President Obama to reject the Keystone XL pipeline in order to protect our land and water.
Many of the protesters at the National Mall are Native Americans who began their message on Earth Day. The encampment was organized by the Cowboy and Indian Alliance, a group of ranchers, farmers, and indigenous leaders who want President Obama to reject the pipeline to protect natural resources and tribal rights. They dubbed their protest, Reject and Protect.
The importance of our water, of the Oglala Aquifer. We live right above it, and our reservation, we come from the Rosebud Reservation, is located right above the aquifer in South Dakota. So, I mean, that's pretty important for my son, for my nephews, for my grandchildren, you know, everybody to come, because what if it gets polluted?
But not everyone is against the pipeline. Former National Security Advisor to President Obama, General James Jones, took his support on a 3-day speaking tour this week in Wisconsin, Iowa, and Nebraska.
I think this is a national security issue of the highest order, and I'm trying to lend my voice to try to convince as many people as I can that we ought to be paying attention to energy issues writ large.
The Iowa speech attracted protesters who would later ask questions about Jones's past. The retired Marine Corps general once served on the board of directors for the oil company Chevron. He also heads a lobbying firm that conducted a study on the Keystone pipeline for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and he ran a group under the chamber called the Institute for 21st Century Energy.
There have been a half a dozen major environmental impact studies done by very qualified people, all of which have said the same thing. So I don't know what it takes to penetrate the logic wall here.
James says tight U.S. regulations are protecting the environment and should be seen as a benefit to approving the pipeline. And the retired general adds that Canadians will find a market for their product and the 20,000 to 40,000 jobs that go with building the pipeline if the Obama administration fails to approve the pipeline.
I wouldn't be standing here if I thought that the environment would be adversely damaged. Canada and the United States, I said, are two of the most regulated societies there are. And if our experts say that it can be done safely, then we should accept that.
Proponents say the Keystone pipeline would carry 4 million barrels of crude a day, twice the amount the U.S. imports from the Persian Gulf. And the general underscored the need to approve the pipeline within the next decade.
I think the international signal that we would send with regard to how we value energy, and which is going to be one of the greatest natural resources of any country in the world. When you think about by 2020, the United States will be producing more oil than Saudi Arabia. I mean, who would have thought that 10 years ago? When's the last time people looked in their newspaper to see when the next meeting of the OPEC oil ministers meet? You know, they used to rivet our attention.
The proposed pipeline also would carry crude produced in the Bakken region of North Dakota and Montana, where a controversial process known as hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, is fueling a renaissance in U.S. oil production. Believe it or not, America is now the world's largest natural gas producer, and it's expected to surpass Saudi Arabia soon as the world's top oil producer, en route to becoming a net exporter of energy by 2025. But fracking is not without vocal critics who blame the process for everything from groundwater pollution to increased crime in areas where oil rigs are prevalent. Regardless of the energy source, there seems to be no shortage of supporters touting its potential and critics lamenting its pitfalls. Biofuels are a prime example. And this week, a pair of studies were mixed in their assessment of the next generation of ethanol. Early this week, a federal government study revealed that cellulosic ethanol has a greater negative short-term impact on global warming than gasoline. The current standard requires that cellulosic biofuels release 60% less carbon pollution than gasoline. According to the study, while biofuels are better in the long run, they do not meet the standard set in 2007, which qualifies them as a renewable fuel. Not being able to reach that threshold would cost producers of cellulosic biofuels the $1 per gallon subsidy they need to compete with gasoline. Administration officials and the biofuel industry immediately criticized the research as flawed. On the heels of the report, Fuels America, a coalition of organizations committed to protecting America's renewable fuel standard, released a study showing the positive impact renewable fuels has had on the economy. According to the report, the Renewable Fuel Standard, or RFS, is responsible for spurring billions of dollars of economic activity from Maine to California. Fuels America says the RFS has created nearly $185 billion of economic output, created over 852,000 jobs, and $14.5 billion in taxes. In Iowa, the nation's top corn-producing state, the study showed the impact of renewable fuels as driving over $19 billion in economic activity, supporting over 73,000 jobs, while generating $640 million in state revenue each year.
Don't mess with the RFS.
Last November, the Environmental Protection Agency's proposal to reduce the amount of renewable fuels blended into America's gasoline and diesel supplies by nearly 3 billion gallons was met with resistance.
And let the EPA know this proposal is bad for Iowa, bad for our farmers, bad for our families, bad for our environment, bad for our communities. It's bad policy. They need to reverse it.
Iowa will likely be ground zero in any battle over renewable fuels. The Hawkeye State leads the nation in ethanol production and is home to more than 40 biorefineries, which produce nearly 1/3 of America's ethanol. Many entrepreneurs rely on business incubators to accelerate the growth and success of their companies. The National Business Incubation Association boasts of more than 1,400 members in the United States and a total of 1,900 members in 60 nations around the world. The incubators vary in their strategies. While some operate on a virtual basis, others feature an actual physical space meant to foster networking and sharing of common goals. A case in point can be found on the south side of Chicago, where entrepreneurs have refurbished an abandoned meatpacking plant into an incubator that produces greens and gills. David Miller explains.
Snow on the ground in the Midwest is usually a clear signal that fresh, locally grown produce is no longer available. But for some residents of Chicago, the supply never dries up, even during the most inclement weather. On the south side of the Windy City, David Ellis and his business partner Eric Roth have joined several entrepreneurs who are pushing back against old man winter.
This all started with a vision for capitalizing on a need in the marketplace, and that need was locally sourced produce. What we saw was just that there was a demand for it, and that demand was only growing at an all-time high and only growing. And in the Midwest, the source for it was very minimal, almost non-existent, other than the summer months. So for a year-round production company, there was a gap in the marketplace that we felt we could capitalize on.
To take advantage of that gap, the pair, along with a silent partner, invested more than $150,000 of their own money to market microgreens, leafy vegetables, and fish under the name Greens and Gills. Their secret weapon against bad weather stopping food production is aquaponics, a closed-loop system that uses water cycled between fish tanks and plant beds. And to maximize the use of their 4,500 square feet of space, a portion of the product is grown on shelves, adding a vertical component to the operation. By being located in Chicago, orders for fresh greens can be filled in as little as a few hours, while the fish are ready for sale every 6 weeks. Selling the greens has actually been easier than the fish because chefs in the metropolitan area have difficulty balancing the purchase price against the cost of processing. Greens and Gills is the first licensed aquaponics farm in the city of Chicago and just celebrated its first anniversary in January. But long before the first pipes were connected, Ellis poured 2 years into research and development. The pair credits some of their success to a distinct division of labor. Roth handles nearly all of the production, while Ellis oversees the marketing.
We felt that we needed to kind of check our egos at the door, realize that there's certain areas in business that we excel at and certain areas where we probably fall a little short. And the idea, and I think it's important for any business, is to recognize those and bring in the team that can really hit on all of those areas.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
The produce from Greens and Gills vertical fields are marketed through a food distributor as well as directly to upscale restaurants located in Chicago's downtown business loop.
Chefs sometimes can be hard to get in touch with, but it's on me to just cold call them. You know, I walk in the door, I come in with a cooler with microgreens and fresh cut basils and French sorrel and lettuces, and generally their first inkling is another vendor calling on me to try to get another product in here. But when my opening line is, I'm David Ellis, I co-own and operate an indoor urban farm right here in Chicago, they're usually pretty receptive to at least see what I have and do a tasting and talk from there.
The chefs at Sienna Tavern were one of Greens and Gills' first customers.
Texture, flavor, appearance, everything, start to finish, is phenomenal. They love to experiment and do new things. So every now and then Dave will come around, and it's that one-on-one interaction with the farmer that goes that much further.
Greens and Gills is located in an unlikely place, the basement of a remodeled meatpacking plant. There are 7 entrepreneurs like Ellis taking advantage of this green business incubator located on the south side of Chicago called The Plant.
Here in Chicago, the average vegetable has come maybe 1,500, maybe 2,000 miles to get here. That's silly. We have a talented workforce just on the other side of these walls. We have all of the resources that we need right here in Chicago, and this is where the food is consumed. So why are we transporting it? So the plant exists to figure out new ways to not only grow food in a city, but also how to process it in an efficient way.
The Plant is John Adel's second business incubator. A former television art director, Adel has devoted more than a decade to helping innovative entrepreneurs get their start. The nearly 95,000 square foot structure was purchased by Adel in 2010 for $250,000. With the help of friends and volunteers, he was able to get things started. Adel's grand plan is to have the tenants create products, process the waste from those products, or provide power for the building in a closed energy loop.
I never see a building as a dirty old building. I walked in and I saw the floor drains and I saw the concrete structure and I saw the beautiful brickwork, and I said, well, you know, all the mechanical systems may be scrap metal, but you have the core, you have some of the most expensive and important pieces.
The concept of growing locally sourced food appealed to urban canopy owner Alex Poltorak. The young entrepreneur began volunteering at the plant nearly 4 years ago and decided the innovative incubator would be a good place to start a business. After investing $100 in some wheatgrass seeds, Poltorak began selling product out of his home to area juice bars. In 2011, he brought his new business to the basement of the plant and eventually moved upstairs to a 700-square-foot vertical farming space.
We call it a for-purpose business. So in the eyes of the IRS, it's still very much a for-profit business that they tax. But at the same time, the way we measure ourselves and what we try to do as a business is very much socially oriented. There's a purpose of how do we feed people, how do we create those economic benefits to the community, and how do we improve community wealth and health and stuff like that. So that's the purpose of the business.
Poltorak handles all of the production, and 4 full-time employees take care of distribution. He continues to sell wheatgrass to juice bars, while the rest of the products are sold to members of his community-supported agriculture project and a few restaurants. Poltorak says Urban Canopy is making money, but the profits are plowed back into the operation.
When I take a step back, I really love it. On a day-to-day, it's still very hard, and it is in this phase of growth that's also difficult to manage. And for me, it's definitely very stressful and challenging to figure out. When I look back on what collectively our crew has accomplished over the last few years, it's astonishing. And there's still a long, long way to go, so it's exciting to see.
Poltorak and Ellis plan to stay at the plant indefinitely to supply fresh, locally produced food to Chicago consumers year-round. But there is still plenty of space for a few more small businesses to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and help Adel get one step closer to his dream. For Market to Market, I'm David Miller.
Next, the Market to Market report.
Field work is well underway in some parts of the Corn Belt, and we've received reports this week of accidents involving fertilizer application. We urge producers to always follow approved safety guidelines, wear gloves and goggles when working near anhydrous ammonia tanks, and always make sure fresh water is readily available just in case. That said, grain markets rallied modestly this week as the trade pondered the impact of April showers. For the week, July wheat gained 9 cents, while the July corn contract moved 12 cents higher. Concerns over Chinese order cancellations pressured soybeans this week as the July contract lost 8 cents, but the July meal contract bucked the bearish trend with an upward move of $3.40 per ton. In the softs, cotton put together back-to-back winning weeks as the July contract gained 91 cents per hundred. In the dairy market, May Class 3 milk gained 50 cents, while the deferred contract improved by 39 cents per hundredweight. Over in livestock, the record-breaking rally continued this week as June cattle contract gained $2.40. August feeders improved by $3.22, but the June lean hog contract lost 30 cents. In the financials, the euro rose less than 1 basis point against the dollar. Crude oil lost $2.77 per barrel. COMEX gold gained $6.90 per ounce, and the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index declined by more than 3 points to settle at 658.30. Here now to lend us his insight on these and other trends is one of our regular market analysts, Tomm Pfitzenmaier. Tom, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike.
We had a bit of an up week this week in the wheat markets. We saw a move a little bit higher. What was driving it this week?
I think a couple things. One is there's a lot of disappointment over dry weather in the wheat belt. Some of those areas just are not getting rain, although they are forecast to over the next few days. So we'll see how that. And then I think the Russian-Ukraine conflict has really been driving the wheat market, and even more so than it has been the corn market.
Now, you mentioned we are expecting some rainfall widespread over much of the Corn Belt and the Plain States over this next week. Is that going to continue to push this new crop corn contract higher as we get later and later in the season?
Well, it's probably, to some extent, it's going to depend on how the planting progress report comes out Monday afternoon. If we come in here you come in Monday morning, Sunday night with forecasts for that wet period to be extended, I think you're right. I think you're going to see some more up in that new crop corn.
Now, if we keep an eye on the corn market, where both new crop and old crop are over $5, should producers be out there making sales, do you think?
Yeah, because the crop's we're not sitting with a situation like we saw last year where everybody's just it's soggy and you can't. As soon as it warms up a little, I mean, there will be people planting this weekend in a lot of areas. If you miss a couple of rains, you're going to get it planted. And that's the way the planting always goes. There's areas that plant and some that have to wait, and eventually it all gets done, and that's the way this is shaping up. I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see a fairly hefty planting progress number on Monday morning, 18 to maybe 22%. And so, it's going to give us some rally. I think it's going to be an opportunity to make some sales up in that maybe 509 to that old high at 517, somewhere up in there. I guess I'd look at that to get something done.
Those would be the targets. Now, as we take a look at the soybean market, we saw the old crop bean market come down a little bit this past week. Strictly concerns over Chinese cancellations, South American imports. Is that what we're looking at there?
We've got crazy stuff going on in that. The U.S. is an island of tightness. And so then you have to triangulate, okay, how's that going to get resolved? Because the rest of the world, there's plenty of beans. We're probably going to have plenty of beans this fall. So how does this little short-term thing get reconciled? Well, the Chinese are probably going to have some cancellations. There were some net cancellations both from unknown and China in this week's export sales report. You're going to see some pretty good imports coming in from Brazil and Argentina, and Canada is going to make up for it. And everybody's running around here worried about old crop. The funds are all long, all kinds of old crop. And I look at it and I go, okay, if that's so critical, how come the basis is 75 cents worse than it was a year ago? How come the May-July spread is at almost even money this week when it was $1.10 premium last? If it's so tight and end users are so out of beans, why is that situation? And the answer in my mind is that we're probably going to have enough beans. Most of those end users have figured out how they're going to make that work. So I'm not saying there's not more upside and the futures won't get carried away, but I think that high was probably put in that here a while back, and rallies there need to be sold. I mean, we ended up only down, maybe 12 cents for the week on old crop beans. But if we hadn't had a 26-cent rally on Friday because of, and that was because the Chinese didn't cancel the pulling the reserves out, they just postponed it for a couple of weeks. So that really was much ado about nothing that eventually is not going to change much. And the good news is that all that old crop falderall has pulled the new crop up and given opportunities to producers to probably sell new crop beans up in that 12.40 to maybe 12.60 range.
Okay.
So let's use this as a chance to get make some good things happen, which would lock in probably close to $12 cash.
And really beats the USDA season average price of $9.65 and change.
Yeah, and we still have acreage issues to reconcile. We still have a lot of uncertainty about how, what was the crop last year. They're using that residual number as kind of a fudge factor, I guess you'd say. Maybe that crop last year was a little bigger than we thought it was in beans. So there's a lot going on there that going to make it for an interesting next couple months here.
All right, well, let's jump over to the livestock side. On the feeder cattle markets, we saw that rally continue, $2.40. Is it just excitement on the cattle feeder side? Is that where we're seeing this rally come from?
Well, I think that's a big part of it. Right now, everybody's trying to buy calves to put on pasture, so you got that going on. We had a cattle on feed report out Friday afternoon that was a little friendly. Placements were lower than expected. I guess you might say there's some speculation that that's maybe pastures have improved some, so that not quite the cattle going on feed. But total number on feed was down some too, so I think that's going to be a little friendly on Monday morning. Now we rallied at the end of the week, so some of that was probably taken into account. But strength in the live market, the fact that the beef's moving fairly well despite we've had fairly high prices, and the perception that we're probably going to eventually have lower feed prices is all playing into driving those feeder costs up.
Let's keep that. And you mentioned the fat cattle side. We did see another run up this week. Is that going to continue? Do we expect tight supplies for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I think we're heading into that grilling season where demand should help support that. Numbers are still kind of on the decline. So yeah, I think you've probably got a chance for June cattle to put another, I don't know, a couple, $3 on, maybe even possibly test their old highs.
And that might get us a little bit closer to where the cash has been trading at recently.
Right.
We've been at that tremendous basis.
April going off the board this week, so it'll be interesting to see how that gets reconciled with the cash market. Perception is that it probably will rally up to the cash market much as February did when it went off the board.
Okay, so could see a little bit of improvement.
Yeah.
All right. Now on the hog side, we're seeing some stability, down 30 cents, but at $124. Who's counting?
Well, yeah, you've got this situation where you've got reduced numbers because of PED. And then you've got all this extra weight. Weights were up again in cattle and hogs both this past week. So that's the tonnage hasn't gone off that much, and as a result, it kind of kept the lid, I guess you say, a little bit on hogs. And I think they've probably overdone, especially those fourth quarter hogs are really pretty heavily discounted. I would expect them to start to move up a little bit and catch up with where the nearbys are at.
Okay, so we don't see a cure for PED in the offing. It'll probably have to come up a little bit.
And you're starting to see some of these guys that thought they had it under control, it's starting to pop back up again. And yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions about that going through the summer and into the fall.
All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to be with us, Tomm.
You bet.
That wraps up this edition of Market to Market. But Tomm and I will continue our discussion and answer some of your questions in our Market Plus segment online. You'll also find audio podcasts and streaming video of our program, as well as links to our Twitter feed, Facebook page, and the rest of our social media outlets exclusively at the Market to Market website. And be sure to join us next week when we'll examine the outlook for spring planting. Until then, thanks for watching. I'm Mike Pearson. Have a great week.
Market to Market is a production of Iowa Public Television, which is solely responsible for its content. Funding for Market to Market is provided by Grinnell Mutual. You think differently about a customer when you stand in the middle of his dreams. We work to make sure you get covered right. Grinnell Mutual, a policy of working together. Information on finding an agent near you is available at grinnellmutual.com.